If it's late September, it's Coach Secure MD time for AFCA member coaches. In the program's 16th year, we are celebrating success as the FDA has approved its first ever gene therapy for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This fall, 4 and 5-year-old boys recently diagnosed with Duchenne make up the first cohort to receive this new treatment, which we expect will change the trajectory of this brutal disorder for them. The AFCA's partner in Coach Secure MD, Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, has invested $7 million in grants toward the development of this therapy over the years, proving that football coaches are making a difference. Wear your patch with pride this week and encourage your fans to follow at Coach to Cure MD on social media. Fans can donate to research by texting CURE to 501-501 to give $25. Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. This week, we hear from Ryan Smith, the corners coach for the Arizona Cardinals, as he shares the importance of coaching where your feet are, his experience coaching at many levels throughout his career, and his AFCA 35-35 experience. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Smith.
Coach Smith, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's up, Mario? How's it going, brother?
Man, it's going good. I'm excited about having you on, man, and diving into this whirlwind of a career that you've had so far, just bouncing around and climbing up the ladder and all the amazing things that you're doing in this profession.
It's been a ride, man. It's been a journey. I've been blessed to be on this, me and my wife and my daughter. So,
yeah.
Good to dive into it.
That's right, man. Well, congrats on the Arizona gig. I know been in the NFL is to some capacity every coach's dream, and you're getting that opportunity to live that. So definitely dive into that a little bit later into this podcast. But first I wanted to ask you, when was it, when did you find out you want to be a ball coach? When did that light bulb click?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of developed over time. And, for me, my past, I grew up in a military background, single mother.
Yeah.
Moved around a lot. Was born in DC, lived in Maryland, then lived in Panama, Virginia, Guam, back to Virginia. Majority of my life was spent in that DMV area. But, for me, growing up with a single mother, kind of seeking and looking for male guidance, as I started getting into my teen years.
Yeah.
Went to a prep school called Blue Ridge School, which is an all-males boarding school, and then ended up walking on at William & Mary. And then during my time at William & Mary, just the influence that I got from, my coaches there, I saw how Jimmy Laycock ran that program, the assistants, John Bowes, Trey Henderson, BK McDonald, Bob Shoup, Scott Boone, guys that, were really influential coaches for me from a schematic and a relationship piece. And then, it's funny, the calling of coaching really came to me in the spring times while I was playing at William & Mary. Me and a couple other teammates, we started coaching in a basketball league. It was called neighborhood basketball. It was 13 to 15-year-olds. And we would, leave practice and go to these gyms in the area, in the Williamsburg area, and coach these kids. And then we'd play on Friday and Saturday nights. And the purpose of the league was to keep kids off the streets. So, just doing that for 4 years, man, I really loved coaching. And I felt like, playing football, when I graduated from William & Mary, my decision was I wanted to stay around sports. I was trying to decide, did I want to coach? Did I want to, do the scouting thing or pursue the front office route? Did I want to pursue the agent route? And all three of those things seemed like viable options, but the one that I would have regretted not pursuing was coaching.
Yeah.
So I said, let me try this one first. And so that's kind of how I got into it or started to pursue it.
Yeah. And you made mention of your mother, being in the Navy and traveling around the country is like, obviously that's just a part of the profession. I think it's really hard for a lot of people to get used to, and you basically kind of at least were prepped from that standpoint of, hey man, at any point in time, I can be in South Carolina, North Carolina to Virginia or Pennsylvania. I'm just looking at your resume. You've been Virginia, Illinois, Arizona now, so you at least had the heads up on that deal. Now,
and I don't mean to interrupt you on that, but it was easy for me early on. It was easy when I was single,
right?
And then I met my wife when I was at Penn State. And she was born in Pittsburgh, went to Penn State, never lived outside of Pennsylvania, so those decisions started getting harder and harder and harder.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we get to Penn State, I want to pick back up on that deal, because that is whenever you start throwing the partner into the decision-making process, it gets interesting, and especially introducing them to that coaching life, which most people don't understand how it really goes down. But so you finish up in William & Mary. The hardest thing to do in this profession is to get started. Once you kind of get your foot in the door, not that it ever gets easy, but it gets a little bit easier to maybe get the next job as your network expands. You got done playing William & Mary, then you end up at UTSA. So you take a trip from Virginia down to San Antonio, Texas. How did that job come about? Who did you connect with to even get your foot in the door to start there?
It's a pretty unique story. So I was a tryout walk-on at William & Mary.
Okay.
And then my last year, my 5th year, I earned a scholarship. Ended up being a starter my last season at William & Mary. My scholarship went through the whole year, but I could have graduated in December. So, but I'm like, man, this is my first time on scholarship. I'm gonna take it all. I'm gonna take everything. So. What I looked at was tuition exchange program. So I actually studied my spring semester in Vienna, Austria. And so I'm in Vienna, and every day I'm in Vienna, I'm like, man, did I mess up? Did I do the right thing by coming out here? Because I know I wanted to be a football coach. So I got word of football school. And so, I'm a young guy, just stopped playing, never been to the convention, never done much coaching wise, but I was very persistent on football school. Every time I see a job posting, whether it was D3, D2, NAIA, high school, I was sending out my resume, and somehow from a stack of resumes, Neil Nethery, the DC at UTSA, saw mine and gave me a shout. Didn't know I was in Vienna, Austria, so I had to hop on a Skype call, and I think it was like 9 p.m. in Austria, and hopped on a Skype call, had an introductory conversation. Neil he reached out to guys in my network, saw William & Mary as a place that a lot of coaches came from, talked to some coaches out there. So when I got back from Austria and went to UTSA for an interview, ended up getting the job. So it is a true. I got my first job off football school.
Off football scoop while you were in Austria. That is crazy. I didn't know that part of the whole story. So you were in Austria on football scoop every day and shot blind. I mean, there's definitely some opportunities. I've seen people get jobs off football scoop, but a lot of people say if it's on a scoop, it's already somebody's already got it.
Yeah, this situation was not. They were actually looking for GA candidates, and and my strategy was I'd refresh football school every day when I'd come back home to my apartment, and I had the template from my resume, template from my cover letter, filled it in, send, fill it in, send, fill it in, send, just hoping something would stick. And UTSA, I'm blessed and fortunate that UTSA was the first one that really came calling, because I was willing to do any and everything. I was willing to take any type of job. I just wanted an opportunity and a foot in the door, because I knew. Once I get a foot in the door, my work ethic, my grind, my hustle would take over from there. So that was my mindset, and I was just fortunate that the right person and the right opportunity came about.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking along that timeline in 2014. That's relatively they were relatively new and coming back, right?
Yes. They were making the transition. They had a couple of successful seasons. Larry Coker did a great job of really building the foundation of that program.
Yeah.
They had made the transition between conferences and really rose very fast. They entered Conference USA, a lot faster than they had initially planned.
Right.
So from a facilities, from all that stuff, they still hadn't caught up. I think now they've got beautiful and amazing facilities down there at UTSA.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, we were playing D1 ball, but it wasn't D1, kind of caliber stuff that we were working with. So it was a true, man, get it out the mud situation, man. And I saw, how passionate everybody was about football and their fan base down there. And Larry Coker, man, was one of the biggest influences I've had in this profession. Just seeing how he operated day in and day out, how he treated people, how he talked to everybody in the building, knew everybody's name, treated everybody like they were the most important person in order to have success as a program. That, the janitors needed to be treated with respect. The business ladies needed to be treated with respect and know that their job's important. From a guy just getting his foot in the door, it was really, the perfect situation for me to just observe and watch, Coach maneuver and operate as a head coach.
Now, you had a pretty quick stint there because you didn't take the job at Penn State. So once again, especially these early jobs, I'm always curious of, you send the resume over and it's really just got the UTSA and just your playing experience at that point in time. How were you able to get that opportunity there at Penn State? And then we'll get into some more stuff about what occurred while you were there.
Okay, yeah. So I was when I went to UTSA, I still had thoughts that I might be I wanted to get my MBA, maybe go to law school. I still wasn't sold on this was a long-term deal with coaching. Yeah. So I was getting my MBA as a GA. So I'm in Starbucks, working on a Sunday, working on some grad school work, and I get a call from Bob Shoup, who was the DC at Penn State at the time. He was my DC in college, and said that they had an opening as a GA, as a back-end GA, and he wanted to talk to me about the job. And a week later, after a couple of Zoom calls or I guess Skype calls, then I got the job and I was on my way to Happy Valley.
So I remember my experience as being a young coach, especially with some of the early transition, where I had to go into an office and tell somebody, hey, I'm about to leave, or, just some of those tough conversations you had to have. What you just been a super young coach. How did that conversation go with Coach Coker, who clearly you think so highly of?
Yeah, I didn't know how to handle it. Yeah. Like I was, as a young guy, it's my first gig. They gave me an opportunity. So I really leaned on some mentors that I had, some previous coaches. What do I do in this situation? What do I do in this scenario? And I learned rather quickly, even to this day, when a good opportunity comes about, 99% of the people and the coaches are going to support you, especially if you're doing a good job where you're at and being a good person. They want to see you have success. The ones that are disappointed and aren't in it for you anyway in the long run.
Yeah.
And, and so when I approached Coach Coker and Coach Nedley, they were beyond ecstatic for me and told me, shoot, you don't have to convince me anymore. You need to go and take that job.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome to get that support and, like I said, probably gain confidence a little bit as a young coach, at least navigating that type of topic, the transition part, which sometimes can be difficult. And so now you went from Virginia, you're down in San Antonio. You took the job up in Happy Valley, right? So now you're up here. I do have a question about that phone call. All right, you talked a little bit about your planned career. You walked on. Took you a few years before you end up being a starter, earning a scholarship, things like that. And so, not saying you weren't a good player or anything like that, but it took you a while to evolve.
I wasn't.
No, that's not where I was going. But
you gotta hide me. You gotta hide me in the game plan. I'll cover 2 on my.
Well, so with that being said, what do you think it was that you said it was Bob Shoup, right? What made Bob Shoup pick that phone up and call you? Why was it you? Why did he want you to come and work underneath him at Penn State?
That's a good question. And I think that the answer to this also is something that is going to be telling throughout all my stops.
Okay.
And why I've made these moves. And the reason and how I've been able to make these moves is I've always been locked in on where I'm at and focused on the process and not the outcome. And, for me at William & Mary, I wanted to show, even though I walked on, I wanted to earn that scholarship. Yep. So, I was persistent. I showed up every day. I was always available, whether it was now not available on the field because they weren't playing because I wasn't good enough at the time.
Yeah. But
I was going to be that guy that was going to be consistent in my actions, consistent in my attitude, and always show up with the mindset that I'm going to work and outwork everybody else. So that type of mindset is, I think, what opened the door to that phone call.
Yeah.
Of remembering that in the past and then seeing that work paid off at the end. That I did stick with it. There was a grit, there was stick-to-itiveness in that process that, there was opportunities for me to give it up, call it quits, transfer, do these things. Cause I wasn't getting paid. I was on scholarship. I was a walk-on and I wasn't playing. Right. So, just how I went about my business and approached my business is, I think, what opened up that opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, so I'm thinking about back to my high school career. I actually got recruited by the University of Richmond, one of the places I was interested in going. And on my visit, I actually went to a University of Richmond William & Mary game where William & Mary came over, and it was an exciting game, all that kind of stuff. But it definitely wasn't 100,000 people in all white. I forget the song that they play at Penn State, whatever song that is they play in the fourth quarter. All that stuff wasn't going on. UTSA at that point in time, now it's rocking now a little bit more than what it used to be, but UTSA, when they were just, kind of getting the ball rolling, it was hard to get people out to the games and all that kind of stuff. So now this is the big show for you, right? This is football like you've never seen it before. What was that like, number one? And number two, as you to be 2 years in and you're at Penn State, everybody's not able to kind of have that early start like that. What were some of the lumps that maybe you had to go through just being a very, very raw young coach?
Yeah, that's, and it was, that was 10 months in because I started Penn State in March the following year. And, I started at UTSA, and then that next March I'm there at Penn State.
Yeah.
One thing that always stuck out to me was my first day of workouts. We had a brand new set of GAs. And after the first workout, James Franklin told the GA to stay after. And he talked to us and he said, I want you guys to understand and know that you're interviewing for your job every day. Mm. Be clear about this. One, you're interviewing for me to keep you here, right? Because there's thousands of people that want your job. Two, you're interviewing for me to bring you back someday as an assistant coach. And then three, you're interviewing every day for all of my assistant coaches who at some point in time are going to be head coaches and coordinators. And actually, it's crazy that what he said actually came true in that sense, because if you look back at that staff that I was on, there's 4 or 5 head coaches, 2 or 3 assistants that became coordinators. It was really a superstar cast that he was able to assemble. So that message rang clear to me that I better figure it out quick. Yeah. And if I don't know, ask and find ways, find solutions, and not come with problems. And that mentality stuck with our whole GA crew. Our whole GA crew kind of springboarded from that GA experience to really big opportunities. So that was, for me, that was something that I learned pretty quickly. Don't live in awe because I'm at the show or I felt like I'm at the show, right? You better pinch yourself really quickly and get to work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, and what no better guy in my opinion than James Franklin, as you were in 35 on 35 I typically get him every year to come speak. He wants to speak on the graduate assistant panel. He wants to come talk to young coaches about, that start in this profession. And that's something he's always been passionate about. And honestly, this is my first story I've got to hear from somebody on the staff as a young coach, to see, your head ball coach clear everybody out and say, hey, you young guys, listen. That's pretty awesome. So what was he good as a young coach for you in your development?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, with time, I think it was our second spring there that, spring ball is over. The assistants are on the road. Head guys can't go on the road.
Yeah.
So he's in the office in May, and he set up a schedule for us that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 8 a.m. we were going to clinic, and we were going to clinic him because, clinic him and clinic each other. As the head coach, you kind of get, pulled in different directions. So it was an opportunity for us to just kind of hone in and, teach the X's and O's, the schematics to each other, get some feedback from him. So, Monday, I think Monday at 8 was offense, Tuesday at 8 was defense, and we'd alternate every day. Those were special teams in there. Special teams QC would jump in at some point. But for me as a young coach, I'm like, okay, I get to install cover 2, cover 3, cover 4 to the head coach. Not only teach the other GAs, but I'm interviewing for the head coach. So I better make sure my cut-ups are right. I better make sure getting on the board, my X's and O's are proper. So the preparation that went into those, really, I look at it as mock interviews.
Yeah,
the preparation that went into that was critical for my development. And, I'm indebted to him for, putting me in those situations. And those are things that I think were valuable just as I went forward. When I took my first job at Elon, I went and interviewed for Kirsten Eddy and Tony Trisciani. And I'm like, I'm up there, it's my first interview, but I'm like, man, I've done this before.
Yeah.
And, it was pivotal for me.
Yeah. What a huge, huge opportunity for your head ball coach, especially, as we were kind of talking about, sometimes when you're on that level, how far, how stretched you can get as a head ball coach. I mean, that's crazy that he would take some time just to dedicate to your development. Because once again, I mean, as you already mentioned, that was just monumental in your first actual interview, and probably made it 100 times easier, and you're probably 100 times more prepared because you've made the cut-ups before, you've talked about it before and all that kind of stuff. Now, I said we were going to revisit this when we got to Penn State. Who's your wife now? You meet you meet this young lady at Penn State. So we don't got to get into how exactly y'all met, but bottom line is you start dating, and I think it's always interesting. Some people walk into the profession, they already have, their partner, and so they kind of navigate it together. They understand. I had my current wife, we were dating prior to me starting the whole coaching journey thing. So I could prepare for what was to happen. It made sense why I wasn't home at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night, or, I was up before she woke up, things like that. How did you go about just kind of introducing her to the profession, and how did she take it, and the movements and everything that's involved?
Well, yeah, the fortunate part for me was that she had already worked in athletics.
Okay.
So she went to Penn State undergrad, and then she stayed on after she graduated, and worked for marketing and running the social media pages for Penn State athletics.
Wow. The
Twitter, the Instagram, all that stuff, their branding. And so she was involved in all that. So she was in the athletics world. So she was pretty, hip to what the demands were on a day in and day out basis. Okay. I don't think when she, I don't think she signed up for all the moves that we've done.
Yeah.
But she has, been an all-star and my rock and my ride or die, because she's been with it every single move, that we've made has been for us and about us. And, she's involved in 51% of the decision.
51, not 50, 51.
51.
so she got the edge on everything. I got you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into that first move, right? So now you spent 3 years as a graduate assistant, both at UTSA and Penn State, and you get this opportunity at Elon. How did you kind of talked a little bit about being prepared for the interview, but how did the job opportunity arise? How did it get into your lap?
Yeah, so Chris Signetti was the head coach at IUP, took the job at Elon. He had worked with Joe Moorhead, who was the OC at Penn State at the time. And, this to me, the message for younger coaches is, really lock in and do a good job where you're at, because I didn't really, me and Coach Moorhead, we didn't really work on the same projects together. He's the offensive coordinator. I'm a defensive GA. All he did or was able to do was just observe how I went about my business. And when the opportunity came out, Chris Signetti reached out to him and he recommended me for the job. And that really hit home for me, because it's like, okay, wow, there are other eyes watching me that I didn't realize.
Right.
I didn't think, I was GM for Brett Pry. I thought in my mind that my job was going to come from somebody on the defense side of the ball, because that's who I worked with. But, that was very eye-opening to me. So that was my opportunity to get the interview. And from there, I did a good job on the interview and got the job.
So, just not going to dissect every last stop into depth, but I do right now. You're about 5 or 6 years into your career. I'm saying towards the end of Elon. You went from Austria to popping up down in San Antonio for this GA at this kind of rebuild situation at UTSA. You go to the big show under one of the best coaches for young coaches under James Franklin. You guys are grinding it out over there. You get your first full-time gig at an FCS program in Elon. Just in terms of growth, which one of those jobs did you feel like you made that significant leap as a coach where you just learned more than you ever thought you'll learn about the game?
Elon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I was learning a ton at Penn State, at UTSA, but I was in the back of the room. Yeah. I wasn't able to get in the front of the room and really make those mistakes on my own.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of the same situation when I was sending out my resume from being in Austria. I've always been on the mindset of growth, development. And after my second year at Penn State, I knew it was time. And I was, again, willing to take any full-time gig. And I could have stayed another year to get from my third year, but I was like, I need to go out there and I need to do.
Yeah.
I need to try. I need to put my hand on that stove and learn from my mistakes. And, I was always curious. I'm still a curious person, right? Like, I always want to learn. I always have that mindset that I need to find and seek out more information. So when I was a GA, I would always ask assistants and coordinators, hey, when did it click for you? When did this game click for you? When did the X's and O's start fitting together and you knew to make this check and this adjustment in this situation? Because at the time, my head's still spinning. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
I know where guys are supposed to be. I know what's supposed to happen, but I don't know the why behind it.
Yeah.
And so being at Elon, I was able to make those mistakes, really, really learn how to coach, learn how to speak to players to help them adjust and maximize their ability. So those 2 years at Elon, and I would say year 1 to year 2. Year 1, I was like learning the system.
Yeah.
Tony Siciliani brought the 3-3 stack from Villanova, brought it to Elon, so it was foreign to me. So year 1, I was learning it. Year 2, I was like, okay, this is all right. I got this. I can do this now. The confidence kind of started building, and that's kind of what springboarded me in my career.
Yeah. So let me flip the question. Is that when it clicked for you, or did it click at any of these other stops that maybe we hadn't talked about yet?
It still hasn't clicked.
That's beautiful, man.
It still hasn't clicked.
Good.
Yeah. And I've, I felt like I've improved my game year in, year out, but every stop of the way, there's been challenges. There's been, things that are different that I've got to learn. I look at where I'm at right now, my first NFL job, first year with the Arizona Cardinals. learning this system that we're in now, learning this game, it hasn't clicked for me right now, so I'm spending time and devoting, extra time just to make sure that my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed, and I'm prepared for my meetings, and I'll be prepared week 1, week 2, week 3 to give my guys and the people around me the best chance to have success. So it's an ongoing thing. Like, I feel like it's never going to click, and the moment that it does click is the moment that I'm going to be passed up by somebody else. So that's my mindset now.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was just trying to, man, how do you even fit power? Like, what is smash? What is scissors? How do we even pass these routes off? Right? Like, what is, like, that was the, man, when does that click?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, that's funny, man. I was super blessed. A guy named Daniel Lounsbury. He was I coached high school ball for 3 years before I got into the college game, and my first year in the college game was Dan Lounsbury. He was our offensive coordinator, and it'd be easier to ask where he didn't coach than to ask where he did coach. He was all over the place. Was a Mouse Davis guy, so he was deep in this West Coast offense stuff. Now I don't know how much you dabble into the offensive side of the ball, but man, I grew up in this air raid, right 91. You got a whole play. You're lined up and you're running a play. It was that simple. And then you get into this mix, west, right, left, jet tubes, and man, my head, like you said, I was spinning, man. And, and I would go in and talk to him afterwards and all that kind of stuff. And he smiled at me one day. And he says, "Hey, man, stay green. You'll always grow. The minute that you become ripe, you won't be far from becoming rotten." And, when he said it, it didn't all click, man. I mean, that's just a quote I've said to any young guy that I've ever kind of mentored in the profession, is that, just always be trying to find a way to grow. Even when you think you know everything, approach it as if you don't. And because the minute you think you do, you're not very far from being done with it and being ripe and being passed up, as you say. So anyways, that you saying that in that way really, really brought back that memory. And I think it's very true. So you go to Elon, you have all this growth here, then you move to another FCS program, but James Madison is a absolute powerhouse at that level. How did that job come about? What were some of the things you took away from that James Madison opportunity?
Yeah, that was so Kurt Signetti at Elon. 2 years, we rebuilt the program. He had an opportunity to go be the head coach at JMU, and he brought me with him.
Good.
And it was important for me at the time. I had, coached the corners. I played corner. And at the time I wanted to expand my knowledge. So I wanted to come as the, coach in the coach the safety.
Oh, okay.
And so I was able to get that safeties job once kind of the dust settled and he started to assemble his staff. And that was a unique situation, man. That is one of the premier college football experiences in the country because of, the standard that place has for winning, the tradition that it has for winning, and then the level and the passion that fan base has. And, one thing that I learned there was so much alignment in that athletic department. Like, everybody's oars were rowing in the same direction. And there wasn't people pulling at different angles. People wanted to see you win and succeed and were willing to support.
Yeah.
And when we got there, it was like, man, hey, just don't mess this up. Like, this place is having success.
Yeah.
Like, let's figure out how they've had success. Let's figure out the pitfalls and the challenges of the job. And let's try to maximize what we can do here. And I was fortunate enough, man, my 1 year there, we lost our opener to West Virginia in a close one. Then we won 14 in a row. And then lost at the end to North Dakota State down in Frisco. So it was a really powerful experience in my development.
Yeah.
And was another opportunity for me to grow. I go from the 3-3 stack at Elon, and then Coach Signetti brought Corey Heatherman from Maine, who's another AFCA 35 under 35 guy.
Yeah.
Brought him from Maine to be the defensive coordinator. So this is another system, that I'm learning and watching the coordinator come in and implement from the ground level. So it was a good experience for me.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you another tough question. You've already heard it, but it's going to be in a different facet. We've seen head coaches take different jobs, seen coordinators take jobs and take staff members and probably more importantly, leave staff members. Why were you one of the guys that he brought, number one? Number two, how were you able to leverage or negotiate yourself into the safeties position? It was kind of like, hey, this is what I wanted to do. Sometimes in this business, you don't just get to do what you want to do, but it sounds like you kind of maybe talked to him a little bit about being a safeties guy rather than corners. How did that dialogue go?
Yeah, I think to answer the initial question was, just doing a good job at Elon. Right. Doing a good job with my players, with recruiting, with, developing at Elon and seeing how it works. I'm from Virginia, so him taking a job at James Madison, it'd be crazy not to bring the guy who was recruiting Virginia, for him and kind of knowing the ins and outs of it.
Absolutely.
So, that I had a leg up in that aspect. And then when he decided to bring who he decided to bring, and there's going to be an open secondary job, it was important for me in my development to move from the corners to the safety. And that was something that was big for me because I know what it's going to eventually take to be a coordinator.
Yeah.
And moving to that safety role was important for me. And, I know that there's a lot of times guys can get pigeonholed to cornerback jobs, to running back jobs, to D-line jobs, and don't get those opportunities to coach, safeties, linebackers, quarterbacks.
Right.
So that was important for me to start that transition to move to the safeties. And again, that was the last time I've been with the safeties. I've been with the corners ever since.
Yeah.
But for me, that was important for me. And that's how it went down. And I went to him. I approached him with something that I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And he was willing to work with me on that. He didn't have to, and I would still win.
Yeah.
But
now, as far as yeah, I know there's a ton of carryover from both of the positions, but obviously both still very different. How did that year, especially with all the success you guys had on the field, how did it help in your development as a corners coach once you returned back to the position?
It just gave me a more holistic view of the game. Yeah. And when I GA'd at Penn State, I GA'd with the safeties year one, linebackers year two.
Oh, okay.
So I had other experiences in the back of the room, right, hearing those things. And it was important for me to now be in the front of the room teaching those things to those guys. And I was, that was the first time that I really felt the pressure and the challenge from my players, which, I enter a situation now coaching the safeties. I haven't been the safety coach yet. And those safeties had just been coached by a legend, Bob Trott, who is the DC and the safeties coach. So I knew going into that job that, all right, you got Bob Trott leaving out and me coming in, there's a level of expectation that I need to meet and eventually exceed if I want to get the respect of these guys.
Absolutely.
I can't just come in and feed them any old stuff. Like I got to be on top of my game. So that really helped develop me on a day in, day out basis, coming into that meeting room prepared, organized, and ready to teach.
Right. And so I'm going to exclude Penn State off this list and UTSA because you were a graduate assistant. I know sometimes, I remember my GA experience, I wasn't too worried about what was going on from other departments. I was just trying to make sure, I was doing a great job and our offense was doing everything it needed to be doing. And, my responsibilities were taken care of. But you made mention of, that 2019 year, just watching all those all those oars kind of rowing in the same direction, nobody pulling and tugging, just what it looked like for a very successful program. You were able to see that up and close as a full-time coach. Just what did that mean to you? And, it might not even come to fruition yet in your career as you're still young in this thing, but just being able to see that. I mean, clearly you were able to see it. You were able to kind of talk about it. What does that mean to you to kind of have that experience of, hey man, this is what it looks like. This is what, if I'm a head ball coach at some point in time, this is what I want to be a part of.
Yeah, I think that hiring the right people and getting the right people on board is important. Yeah. What I learned is when I talk about the alignment, it it felt like, and there's a lot of situations across the country where, especially in the game of football, where you implode with fans, right?
Yeah.
Most football games are lost and not won because another side implodes. And I think from a managerial perspective, from a top-down perspective, it works the same way, just like the game of football. If one department and another department aren't going in the same direction, and there's friction that isn't smooth or we're not working through that friction, I think it causes an area of your program where you're suffering a loss and or not servicing the kids in the right way. And I think what I learned just in my 1 year at James Madison was there was a lot of people rowing in the same direction, going in the same direction, headed in the same direction. So made and the conversations were seamless. So that allowed the kids to walk into an environment that was created, that was positive, that was conducive for their success and set up for them to succeed, and not, man, we got to work around these barriers in order for us to achieve our job. And that was critical for me to see.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the interesting things, and this is probably not that conducive to the podcast, is there's probably more jobs that don't operate like probably what you saw. Unfortunately, there's just more jobs in this profession that, there's hurdles, there's barriers, there's, somebody pulling in a different direction than there are just where everything is aligned. And sometimes being a part of that, seeing that firsthand is huge. Now, I do have to do a check, like I'm a host of Love Connection. You're 4 years into the relationship. Where is the current wife yet in this stage? Has she been making these transitions with you and all this, or she's been settled in somewhere else? How have you been managing that part of it?
Yeah, so when I left Penn State, went down to Elon, I was living right outside Elon's campus. She was still at Penn State for another year. She ended up getting a job in Cary, North Carolina. So we moved to Durham so we could kind of split the commute.
Okay.
She said it was halfway, but again,
that's the 51. Really that's that 51-49 part, right?
Yeah, that's what that is. So when I got the job at JMU, I knew that, man, I can't ask her to move again.
Yeah.
Without putting a ring on her finger.
Okay.
So and again, it wasn't just that situation. I knew it was time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's how that came about. So we were engaged when we got to JMU, and then we ended up getting married the following year at Virginia Tech.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get you at Virginia Tech. You have this crazy good year. Like you said, Corey Hellerman, awesome dude, part of 35 under 35. Got to work under him. How did the Virginia Tech opportunity come across? And this is, I don't like talking money on here, so we won't get into that detail of it. But this is a life-changing kind of phone call and opportunity that comes about to be able to coach at that level and have the responsibilities and make the kind of money that you make at that level. So just how did it come about?
So it's crazy because I got the Virginia Tech job. I interviewed for the Virginia Tech job when I was at Elon. And not a formal interview. And this kind of goes back to the theme of this call a little bit, is just being present and doing a great job where you're at.
Yeah.
So I'm at Elon. I'm recruiting the 757 area. I'm in Hampton, Virginia. And Justin Hamilton, another AFCA 35 under 35 guy, he had just got promoted to the safeties coach at Virginia Tech. But he just got kind of thrown in the fire, thrown on the road. So we're at the same school, and I'm kind of like, all right, I've been recruiting this area. This is this kid, da 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 da. I knew all the kids in the area, and made an impression on him at that point right there. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm at JMU. I'm going on a national championship run. Bud retires, and Justin gets promoted to the defensive coordinator job. And through that interaction from a couple of years prior, I was a name that was on his list to talk to. Mm. So I reaches out to me. We're on the phone for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I think we beat Northern Iowa on a Friday night. I go the next morning to interview. They're in bowl practice, and a couple of weeks later, I get the job. And, it's starting to leak right before the national championship game. But luckily, I don't think it was nobody saw it. That was the biggest thing on my mind was, man, get through this national championship game and give these guys a chance to win and don't be a distraction. And as soon as, that game was over that Saturday, Monday, everything kind of came out and I started that Tuesday.
Well, yeah, you as you talked about some of these things, man, you really gave some interesting perspective, really from your point of view and how you were looking at things, like the Bob Trott deal, where you're like, man, I'm taking over the safeties room. I got to be on my P's and Q's and all that kind of stuff. And now you're on this big stage, and what you've been on the big stage before at Penn State, but you were, like you said, in the back of the room. Now you're in the front of the room. You're on a big stage. You're a corners coach, defensive pass game coordinator. What's some of that internal dialogue as you get a job like this that we all hope for at some point in time? What was that internal dialogue a little bit?
It's very similar to the internal dialogue that I had at JMU. It was, all right, now with this opportunity, I don't want to be one and done here, man. I want them to send me back.
Yeah.
Right. So let's attack each day. Let's prepare and let's maximize what I can do for these players and really pour into these guys, and let my work and the things that I do on a day in, day out basis, interviewing for my job every day.
Right.
Let that speak louder than any words that I can say.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you this thing. This is kind of a weird question, but I played corner my first year in college at Army, and obviously playing in high school. I don't think anybody that's ever played a position had heard you got to have a short-term memory, and at this position you got to get beat for a touchdown and go line it back up and win the next play and things like that. And then once again, just been in this role for a while, doing these podcasts, talking to coaches, and they're talking about the most important hires. You better have a good O-line coach, and you better have a good corner coach, right? I know you've heard that before, right? That's kind of that. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that position because, if my left guard gets beat, nobody in that stadium knows that happens, right? If my left corner gets beat, everybody and their mama knows that happens. So, when you're playing that position, just when you have that kind of position and, just what kind of comes with it, I don't think I've ever asked about what's the coach's psyche, when you give up a fade route, you give up a slant route, you give up inside when you're not supposed to, what's that psyche as a coach?
Yeah. So for me, it's, and I kind of just running through just what I believe in as coaching that position group is prepare those guys as much as you can outside of the white lines, but as soon as they step into the white lines, man, let them play. Let them ball. Let them fall back on their training, on the preparation that you've done to get them to that moment, and let them do relax, have fun, and ball. Because a lot of times coaches will say, you need a short-term memory, but the guy who doesn't have a short-term memory is that coach. That's right. Right. He's the one screaming and yelling in between plays, can't give it up because, like you said, left guard gets beat, man, nobody knows except his parents and the coach.
Yeah.
Right. Left corner gets beat, man, the whole stadium knows. So it doesn't, for me, it's creating a culture and cultivating positivity in my room, being true to those guys. Don't be false, and don't hype them up so much that they believe in they're somebody that they're not, but maximize their confidence, maximize them as people, maximize their ability. And you do that by just, one, the relationship you build with them, and two, being level-headed, right? Understanding, man, that's a 3-yard hitch. They ain't going to beat us with a 3-yard hitch. What's the routes that are really going to challenge and test us that you need to defend, right? It's understanding, getting them to understand where the help is, where the help isn't. Right. And, when they come to the sideline, it ain't screaming and yelling. It's talking like man, so that the next time you step in between those white lines, you're prepared, ready to go with whatever that offense is throwing at you.
I appreciate you sharing that, Coach. Now, I do have to dive into a interesting story. Obviously, this is 2020, 2021, and kind of whenever you say the 2020 term these days, it brings back some memories about how out of a year that was from a football standpoint, just in general, to be honest with you, but from a football standpoint, some of the stuff we had to deal with. And Justin Hamilton, 35 guy, was the defensive coordinator at the time, and so obviously I had some understanding of what was going on there at Virginia Tech throughout the course of the year, and the COVID bug kind of went through the staff versus I believe it was South Carolina, and so they just called up some guys, some random dude to come be the DC for the game. How did that go down, man? Just talk to us a little bit about that week and how awesome it was to have that experience.
Yeah, so we were playing NC State, and it was like we had gotten 2 games in a row postponed, and bringing everybody back to that September of 2020 where, man, games left and right were getting postponed, pushed back. So by week 3, nobody's played a game yet. So, we're trying to tell our guys, all right, this is the week. And they're looking back at us like, all right, yeah, right, coach.
Yeah.
So, it ended up that, as the week was going on, that it was like, okay, this is a possibility that this game's going to happen. And as that was occurring, that the COVID was going through our staff crazy. And it was it had already ran through our offensive staff, but those games got canceled. And then the defensive staff started getting hit. And, by the end of the week, it was Friday, pregame meal. I'm sitting there, it's me, Jay Ham. We got a defensive GA, and a defensive QC. That was it. That's all. We were the lone survivors, getting ready to, get these boys ready to play NC State. And then, so go to sleep next morning, go on my pregame jog routine, clear my mind, come back to my room. I look at my phone. I got about 10 missed calls from Justin Forte. I'm like, oh, dude, I thought it was me. I was like, man, my first game at Virginia Tech, first game on the stage, I'm out. Right. So he was like, meet me downstairs, got to talk to you. So I go downstairs, and he's on one side of the hall, Jay Ham's on the other, like socially distanced by like 20 feet. It was a big hallway. And Spoo says, Jay Ham's out. He's about to leave right now, waiting for a driver. You're up. And at that moment, like, I snapped into mode, like, all right, what do you need? He's like, well, we got walkthrough in 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, all right. Whatever we need. Like, what about our staff? What are we going to do? So we kind of brainstormed, and we came up with a staff of, some recruiting guys, and, elevated our QCs and GAs, position coaches. Let me just, hey, you're the coordinator today. Don't worry about position groups. We're going to handle it. We're going to one of our recruiting guys is going to coach the D-line. Our other recruiting guys is going to coach the linebacker. QC's got the corners. Our GA's got the safety. Boom, you call the game. All right. And so it was, I didn't have time to really think about it. Like, I didn't have time to get nervous at all.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because 3 weeks prior, as we're going through the COVID stuff, it's, we came up with a flow chart of, okay, if this person went down, then this person would be elevated. If the DB coach goes down, this person gets elevated. If the GA goes down, this person gets elevated. So we had a plan. Justin, who had a plan that was, really intricate of if this, then this. And so I was already the next play call. So if Jay Ham went down, I was going to be the guy that was going to call the plays. And it just so happened in the mock game, Justin and his wife Brittany were expecting their third child, and she went into labor before the mock game. So I was elevated for the mock game to be the defensive coordinator. And before that, man, I was nervous. I was like, man, I know all this is scripted, but shoot, I'm the DC. This is my first go around, and I'm the DC in the mock game. So I had some nerves going at it. But for 3 weeks when we're playing NC State, I didn't have time.
Yeah, you just got to go.
Like, it's walkthrough. It's, man, let's get our last minute preparations or get on the bus and let's go. Time to call plays.
Yeah.
And that night I was fortunate, man, that those kids. Yeah, I had nothing to do with it, man. I could have called anything and they would have executed. They just wanted to play.
Right.
And we started having success, and we're in a 2-minute drill, and I started feeling myself a little bit. I'm like, man, I got this. I started calling plays that we were running at JMU. My guy's looking at me like, Coach, what is that? right? So it was a unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
You know, I say that on the flip side, our offense put up 48 that night. We won.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was actually going to be the DC going into the next week because Jay Ham hadn't cleared protocols. And Thursday after practice, I'm getting ready to go in the staff meeting. Practice is done for the week, and I get that tap on the shoulder, like, "Hey, come with me. You got guy." So that's when I end up getting COVID. That
man, what a crazy year, and that's a story I'm sure. You know, the longer you're in this business, some of these games get hard to recall, but that's one I don't think you'll ever forget, right?
No,
That's awesome, man. Well, you know, you do your 2 years there. I believe the staff was let go in 21. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Staff was let go in 21. You get the opportunity to. This is the first time now I'm looking at your. This is the first time where you kind of didn't have a gig, right? Because every year you were coming with the staff, or you were, just on the staff and getting called over to another one. This is the first time you actually made a transition. You don't have anything. Just talk a little bit about those nerves that, just what happens in the profession. Staff gets let go. I've been there before, and you're just that unknown. What was that like for you?
You know, it was, for me, the first time going through it, it was, there was a lot of unknowns and certainly a lot of doubt, but, just me and my wife, how strong she is, and us keeping our faith and knowing that, things will work out in how they're supposed to, and, good things are happening to good people. And it, was fortunate that I was, only I really wasn't even out of a job. It was, that Northwestern opportunity came about when, we had just ended our season, and I was really uncertain what was going on at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
But, I was fortunate that Pat Fitzgerald, man, gave me a shout, was willing to open up, his program to allow me in. And, that was something that I accepted before, I really even knew where the dust was going to settle at Virginia Tech.
All that good stuff. You get through the season, and you're probably looking around, feeling pretty comfortable. All of a sudden, you get another phone call that leads you to this current position. So, kind of how did that go down? And then we'll talk a little bit about your stay so far at the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, so that opportunity was not on my radar. Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rowlers, they came from Philly. There'd been, in previous years, opportunities for us to connect, just hadn't, and they had an open job. My name got floated out to them, and there was some familiarity with it, and so that led to an initial conversation, and which led to an interview, which 72 hours later led me to be in Arizona, and that was an opportunity and every opportunity that we've taken. Me and my wife, 51%, right? We've sat down and we've thought of the development piece. The money has not been involved, really a factor in any of our conversations. It's really, where can we grow as a family? Where can we grow in this profession? And where can we grow to maximize us? And it has never been, hey, can you call this person to get this interview for me?
Yeah.
Can you call this? It's been to do a great job where you're at. The opportunity is going to come, and it'll pay dividends down the road. And, this was just another example of that, just being present at Northwestern, being excited about, building it. In my second year, we loved living in Chicago, and just this opportunity came about, the challenge to coach at the highest level. The challenge to be in the NFL, be a position coach in the NFL was something that we just couldn't pass up.
No doubt about it, man. And we were going to talk about some other stuff moving forward here on the podcast, but if there's not anything that listeners take away from this, especially you young guys in the profession, it is so easy to be the guy that was in Austria when you didn't have a gig, to be the guy, but sitting in football offices with a job on Football Scoop, worried about the next thing and not taking care of what's right in front of you, man. And that's just been the epitome of everything that you've done and all these stops. And it's so crazy that, not to take away from your hard work, but all this stuff has fallen into your lap because of your hard work. It's just a testament to how you approach the profession, man, and you've been able to have a great amount of success. So once again, I appreciate you kind of being vulnerable, just really continuously kind of hitting home at that was the most important thing. Be where your feet are, work your tail off, and all that good stuff. So now you're in the league. You haven't put a season together yet, but what has kind of been some of the eye-opening things from you? Obviously football's football. I know it doesn't change almost from any level. There's some intricacies here and there, but ultimately, what has been, whether it's the relationships, whether it's, the actual coaching itself when it's in regards to personalities and things like that, what has been the most eye-opening change for you?
Really the biggest eye-opening change is the fact that there isn't that much of a change.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed. And, I think it's a testament to, some of the guys that I've replaced, like we've talked about, like me following Bob Trott and how the position room at JMU was when I entered. Yeah. Right. With me going to Northwestern and being able to coach guys that are, hungry to learn. Like if I'm at Northwestern and it's page 3, box 4, and the corner is supposed to be pressed, but we messed up on the video drawing and he's off, man, I'm getting a text message like, hey, coach, in this formation, am I going to be off or am I pressed? Yeah. Like just a level of detail that needed to be done to coach those guys and give them what they needed is the same thing with my guys here with the Cardinals. Yeah. Right. Is the ability to come into a room prepared and detailed so that you can give them the things that they need to be successful on the field and off the field, but just to maximize them, because that's what they want. They want to be coached. They want to learn. They want that information so they can go out and be successful and eventually at this level get paid. Right. So that is something that I've been fortunate in my stops to learn along the way, that I was like, man, this isn't that much different.
You made mention there a few times, Coach, of James Madison, your DC was Corey Heatherman, 35 under 35 guy. Your DC at Virginia Tech was Justin Hamilton, 35 under 35 guy. And now you're with the Cardinals. You're working alongside of Pat Toney, who was at Florida, and a lot of people know him in the DB world. Just always willing to share and talk about the position. Now you're working alongside of him, and so I want to, before I let you go here, I want to talk a little bit about that 35 under 35 experience. And you stood out to me when you applied at Elon, and I do want to talk about this because I get a lot of guys that apply, they get frustrated, they message me, sometimes not the nicest emails. Hey man, why didn't I get in? And I know you applied at Elon once, and I think you got in the following year. But why was it important for you to not only apply but reapply? And then once you got in, how special has that been for you?
It's one of the best things from a growth and development standpoint that I've done in my career, and the network that I've been able to grab from it, and meet guys who are passionate and want to grow and develop at the same level that I do, has been something that's been huge for me in my career. And for me to get in, I've always approached every off season, every opportunity with how can I maximize my growth and development, and being AFCA 35 under 35 and really wanting to be in that group to really just take the knowledge from others and give what I can, but really be a sponge and absorb and listen and be able to grow my game. Like that was huge for me. It really had nothing to do with the accolades, the awards, the resume build. It was, how can I, Ryan Smith, maximize myself? And I felt like joining that or applying and eventually getting into that was something that would help me out tremendously as a ball coach and as a man. And I will kind of go further with, just the AFCA in general. The last couple years, I've taken a different approach as I've went from, that GA or that young coach to now, I still am a young coach, but being a guy in his 30s and starting to, find my niche in things. I've taken a different approach when I go to, conventions, and now I'm, more active in the assistant coaches meetings. I'm really intentional with my days so that I can maximize my days and meet with people, meet with younger coaches. Not only have a drink with guys that I've, been in the foxhole with, but also to sit down with young guys in this profession, that I can share my story or I can be a mentor or resource to. That's more important to me than it is really anything else. Just be able to pour into some of those guys that I don't have the opportunity to do on a daily basis. So just the things that AFCA has been able to provide me has really springboarded, my development as a coach and a man.
Absolutely, Coach. Man, I've enjoyed this. Honestly, these podcasts are typically around 30, 45 minutes, and I'm looking down. We're an hour and 5 minutes in. So I appreciate you taking the extra time with me, man. It's been super enjoyable to kind of dissect your career and kind of take a peek into how you looked at things and how you approach things to have the success that you've had thus far. And, unfortunately, I think the NFL season has stretched the week out, however they did that week 16 or created that week 17. So I think it overlaps the convention now. So I don't know if we'll be able to see you, but if you can make it, we'll look forward to seeing you in Nashville in 2024. If not, I know we will definitely cross paths again at that thing or somewhere else, man. And keep fighting a good fight. We'll definitely be cheering you guys on the back end at the Cardinals, representing that 35-35. And super excited for you and proud of your career and what you've done thus far.
Thanks, Mario. Appreciate the time and the opportunity to hop on the podcast.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, this has been my pleasure, man, and best of luck to you, okay?
Thank you.
All righty.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm, on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.